So the government has offered striking teachers one of the most pathetic deals that you could even have imagined. Like, it's so insulting. They've offered them 4.3% as a pay rise, which is like less than half of what inflation is. I mean, if you accept a pay rise that's less than inflation, that is a pay cut. Like, in real terms, that is a pay cut. As if people thought they were going to like go on strike to get like a less bad pay cut. And then they were offered like a one-off payment of £1,000. And if you accept a one-off payment, you are just betraying like yourself next year, and you're betraying people who become a teacher next year, and you're betraying like everybody who comes after you. Like, taking like a one-off payment and leaving wages low, you're just giving yourself more work. You might as well say, I'll take my £1,000 and then we'll just schedule next year's strike already if we have to do it every single time for a one-off. Anyway, good news. 98% of those who voted from the NEU, almost 200,000 teachers, voted to reject the offer, and there are some more strikes scheduled. And I'm sure some people are like, oh, but it's not fair because what about our kids and stuff? But the fact is that teachers are on the side of kids, because what they're saying is we want a properly funded education system with proper staffing levels and with teachers who can afford to live on the wages that they're getting and can afford to have a comfortable enough life such that teaching is an attractive profession. On top of which, it should be noted that the offer the government had given to the NEU was not like, it wasn't really funded, right? It was only a small part of it was funded. The rest of the money would have come out of school budget. So teachers would have been like, oh great, yeah, I have a little bit of extra money. But now there's less books. Now there's less funding for equipment. Now there's less maintenance for buildings. There's less cleaning around schools. Like, it would have come out of somewhere else. We need a better funded education system, not the money that's there pushed in certain directions by the government. We need an overall rise in the way that the education system is funded, and incidentally ditto the NHS and so on and so forth. Now, large parts of the RMT are still out on strike, but it is worth noting that the little parts that have gone back have managed to get a pay rise that, depending on your grade, ranges between 9.2% and 14.4%. And at that top end, that is above inflation, and that is an actual pay rise, a very, very much deserved one, because a lot of these people have not had a pay rise for a really long time, and they do really, really important work. But it's important to note that the idea that like, oh, this government just won't negotiate, oh, there's no point going out on strike, they're going to hardball it, whatever. They're not. They will eventually come and negotiate, because otherwise the chaos that is caused is too much. And the worst thing is that in order to try and prevent that, they're also now bringing in this strikes bill, the Minimum Service Levels Act, which is going to try to force people who want to go out on strike to go back into work and provide, like the basic services, which is like really ridiculous. If these services are so vital, then pay the people who provide them a fair wage for doing them. Like, the right to withdraw your labour is so fundamental to our human rights and our rights in the workforce. In fact, if you don't have the right to withdraw your labour, I mean, that's coerced work, isn't it? And like, there's a word for that. It's absolutely terrifying that that would be their approach, rather than try to negotiate with people. And on top of it, I keep looking for the moment where Keir Starmer is going to turn around and say that he's on the side of the teachers and the nurses and the doctors, and instead of which, every time I look at the internet, all he says is that he wants more police on the streets, which is really bad timing given all the news we're hearing about the police and how atrociously racist, sexist, homophobic, etc, etc, etc there are. And yeah, we need proper opposition, but more importantly, we need to understand that what the strikers are asking for is eminently reasonable, and that they should hold out for it. And secondly, that if and when they do, ultimately they will get what they need, because ultimately the government has no choice but to respond to people. We've seen that the RMT has had some successes. The nurses, the teachers, all the rest can have the same successes, and if you are out on strike, then absolute solidarity to you. And if you're out on strike and you could use some support on the picket line, or a benefit, a fundraiser, whatever, please get in touch, because that's exactly my wheelhouse and I'm all over it now. I'm back in the UK. Thank you so much for supporting those around you who are pushing on with strikes and trying to make this country a better place for young people and health provision and all of the rest. And if you are able to spare a little bit, then please consider sponsoring these videos as well, because it's so difficult to get these kind of messages out in the face of a mainstream media that sort of regurgitates government press releases and all the rest. And I really appreciate your support. See you next week.